I have no idea what's happening now in the news because
Okay.
my husband and I don't watch TV at all, and but I know there's unrest.
The whole thing's about Israel and Israel's evil and they're racist, and that's from the river to the sea. We want to get. It's about death to Jews and death to Israel.
What in
That
the
the
world?
whole thing. That's the issue. There's no. There could be some side issues. That is the issue at the universities. So. Genesis 12, I will bless those that bless thee and curse those that curse thee. So people are bringing a curse on themselves. The problem is there's no law enforcement. So for
stop
right
them from
now,
doing this.
people are getting away with it. They're clearly violating both university rules and violating the constitutional rights of Jewish students.
This is in America.
Yes. So one
Now.
place they told the Jewish students they were going to be attacked, so they ran in a library and they locked themselves in. And the librarian said, I think it'd be a good idea if you went in the basement and hid yourselves. That's Nazi Germany all
I'm
over
sorry.
again.
Oh, that's awful.
So, but if you don't know any history, which I would think people under, let's say, 25, maybe a little deficient on the history side,
Yeah.
they don't know. It's like the Ukraine war. What's happening in Ukraine is 1930s Nazi Germany and all over again. Let's not get involved. Let's let them get what they want. Eventually they'll stop. That doesn't happen in history.
No.
The evil people keep going.
Right.
And so this thing with blocking Jewish students, when I saw that photo, I'm like, I cannot believe, what's Yogi Berra says, deja vu all over again.
Oh, that breaks my
And
heart.
there it is. But the people don't know. And the beliefs of a lot of the students, if they were in Gaza or Iran, they would be killed. They would be just the life they lived, there would be enough to kill. In Iran, they throw homosexuals out of 14-story buildings.
How is something not being done about that in America? I mean, how is this okay? This is not okay.
Well, it's not okay because there are various avenues that the federal government. Listen, these schools receive a lot of federal money.
Oh, yeah.
And one time in GW, one of the chaplains said, "We're going to do everything to stop you," because we had in our book table we had books for Jews and for Christians. So I said, "Well, a funny thing about that is, you see that building over there? That's a law school, and I just graduated from there, and this." University is a big-time recipient of federal funds, so you're not going to do anything. So, go away.
Also, I serve a great
so we have
God,
to
and you have no idea. He's on my side, and he's on the Jewish people's side. So I don't know what these people are thinking, trying to go.
They don't believe in the Bible. That's bottom line. They don't believe in the prophetic words. Bottom line. So their filtering system is pure emotions. So Natan Sharansky was in prison in Russia for a long time. Finally, he got to move to Israel. He wrote a book, A Case for Democracy. And in it, he said, in the East, which included Russia and everything going that way, the main problem is being in the face of evil. The main problem in the West is seeing evil. We can't see it's evil. You can't see that you can abort babies after they're born. How is that possible?
Right. How is that not murder?
You've got universities who want to not lose the allegiance of students on the left. And then one donor said, "Oh, that $500 million I was going to give you, I'm not giving it to you." So those are people doing something. The university should have stopped this stuff because in the 60s it was about Vietnam. And now it's about Jews. It's a whole different ball of wax. I mean, you can dislike the war, but it had nothing to do with, for some people it probably had something to do with color of skin. It was white people killing Asian people. But the whole thing of it was more like the issue is the war. We want to stop the war. Now we want to eliminate the Jewish people. And people are going around chanting that. Do you think that
Where?
would violate a university rule?
Yes.
Sure it would. But they're not. And the police, we can't come in unless they ask us. And something about New York City police, they're not generally liberals. So when they get on campus to clear you out, they're going to do it. And the biggest, the one photo thing I saw, it was like a little video in New York, I think from Columbia, the students were arrested and their masks were taken off. As soon as their masks were taken off, they began to weep. So these are revolutionaries are weeping because they're unmasked because they don't want to be known as someone who took part in this. Because there'll come a time when it's not going to pan out right, unless the country tanks. There'll be pushback. Some schools have said they're not hiring Columbia graduates for their law firms, so they do the right thing even if it might cost them. How'd you like to be parents paying $100,000 a year at Columbia and watching your kids do this and thinking, and the kids who say, oh, we've been detained and we don't have anything to eat. So one of my friends said, tell them to go to the campus place.
Cafeteria?
Just go in, oh, it's closed. Oh. So they wanted food and they want a plus for putting, in a way, their neck on the line by cursing the Jewish people and they should all die. I'm sorry. No other minority would put up with it.
Well, that's what I have a Jewish friend, and she was saying, where's the outrage for this? Where there is Black Lives Matter. There's so much for if this would be anybody else, it would be a different story.
So it's all over again. Every empire has tried to kill us.
Yeah.
I mean, eliminate us. So here we're in 2024, and this is happening.
Yeah, that just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like I feel like this is like y'all are telling me something. Like I feel like y'all are pouring freezing cold water on me. I had no idea this was going on. I mean, it's just.
Well, there's a scripture that says the foundation of the throne of the Lord is justice, and I think it's mercy. But the idea is, if you don't have justice, people say no justice, no peace. Well, that's exactly right. And there is no peace right now because there is no justice. And don't get me started about whether the Trump trials are constitutional. To me, you have to know the law to know that, targeted, when you target somebody to be charged criminally to get them to go to prison, that's not actually high in the virtues of lawyers' code of justice.
Targeting.
Yes. It's not, because the president now, the guy said, oh, he's so old and has no memory, we can't charge him with a crime.
But he can run our country.
And he kept documents that he had no right to keep. So that's like, it's okay on this side, it's not okay on that side. It's very disillusioning to see that.
Well, it is. It's heartbreaking. And I feel like the big picture, there's so much to get into. And this might not even be like a easy answer. But do you, what is something that we as believers can do to, is it get
simple.
awareness? What would you suggest?
Do that they do in Soviet Union, in Ukraine. If the babushkas, the grandmothers, write a lot of letters to the president of Ukraine, even though they're totally not a democracy, all of a sudden the wheels turn.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into politics. Well, is voting politics, or is that a responsibility?
It's a responsibility.
So if you're a responsibility, we need to speak to power. And so they knew inherently to do that in Ukraine, although they had no rights. But you couldn't fight the grandmothers because they have a broom. And they will use it.
That's hilarious.
So believers need to show up at school board meetings and try to keep not get too angry. But when they don't tell you your daughter is raped, and the guy was moved from somewhere where he was raped, and then he raped his daughter, you're not going to get upset, I'm sure.
Right.
People should have just come around and hugged that guy, that dad, because who has to live with that, put up with it? No, I went to high school in the 60s. I can't imagine a boy being in a girl's locker room. That you'd never see the inside of that school again, ever. Because there are competing rights, yes. There's a right of privacy.
Right.
As a woman, what are you thinking, that she has to give that right so this guy can go to your toilet?
Yes.
No, I didn't. It's a point where there's an imbalance. I always felt, just create a bunch of bathrooms like you see some restaurants. It says men or women. Okay, they're
just individual.
You don't have to.
Well, it's like it's trying to make a point, and I feel like that's where a lot of society is right now. It's like, and that's why we stopped watching the news, is because everybody was like pushing these points down people's throats. It's
well,
like,
that's the deal. That doesn't make it right or fair. All I want to see is some kind of fairness.
Right.
But it's local governments the most. So you show up, city council meeting, write letters. There's a fear they're going to track you down. Well, I don't think that's a wrong fear. They are going to track you down. But what are you willing to put on the line?
Right. Well, what's really important to you?
I think about that all the time with the Holocaust, not being the one targeted. You're like, well, what about the people who just watched, and think about that all the time. Like if that were something that could happen again.
Well, I mean, that makes me feel so naive and like I'm so...
This thick, Bonhoeffer.
Yeah, Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Yeah, well, Eric Metaxas wrote that. And they took incredible, dangerous positions because they had to. Bonhoeffer said the church that promotes doing these kinds of stuff to Jewish people is not the Church of Jesus.
No, it is not. You're right.
So that's, and he was hung, and just before the war ended, he was hung.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We have a responsibility, and I feel
we do.
And the church is having a really hard time speaking up for the hard no's, and they're just, watching everybody just go away. And I didn't even know about a lot of the stuff. I mean, you've opened my eyes even more today, but I mean, it breaks your heart for what they're just saying is okay.